paving the path to a new normal through education. So today we'll be discussing the problem which created the basis of my study. We will then discuss the study objective, methodology, results, and discussion, after which then I will share my conclusion. So, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected society globally. It has affected 210 countries and territories and 2 international conventions around the world. Societies are amid a global catastrophe where the individuals have been affected socially, economically, and politically. The world is undergoing a rapid change from what we once called normal. The world has witnessed changes, many societal changes, pandemic, epidemic, that are documented within many historical texts. Thus, international governing bodies advised by the World Health Organization to take strict action and implement severe lockdown regulation and social distancing, measuring and aiming to obtain the virus to be in control. They also promoted the importance of excellent hand hygiene, good respiratory etiquette, simultaneously stressing the importance of personal protection equipments like masks and gloves to protect societies. The COVID-19 has caused a global upheaval affecting societies and is highlighting a major disruption of education system globally. For decades, education has been has been imparted to students through a traditional format. The reliance of face-to-face interaction and physical presence has been imperative for students to succeed historically. Through education, individuals learn normal moral habits, values, and beliefs. Thus, it is a crucial element of societal development and produce well-educated global citizens. Therefore, it is vital that education continues. Therefore, it is vital that it continues despite global circumstances, including the emergence of a pandemic. Hence, when government lockdown measures were applied, education institutions were faced sudden closure, which resulted in chaos. It is evident that traditional teaching and learning has become habitual and deemed the normal way of obtaining knowledge. However, as a human being, we are creatures of habit. We do not like any changes. We were not ready and we were not able to accept it, but we do not readily enjoy changing process that worked for many years, particularly teaching and learning pedagogies that have been progressing over the last 100 years. So within education setting, learners were the grouped according to their age, then their learning capabilities. The dominant form of learning included listening to the educator who dedicated learning material to the learners. Notes were written and memorized. Peer-to-peer interaction were encouraged when manual tasks were presented to be completed. This format was implemented so that the students were able to attain good results working towards a favorable occupation and job, which would lead towards a prosperous future. Due to the massive dependence of this COVID pandemic on the traditional education, schools closure resulting from the COVID pandemic have affected approximately 1.2 billion learners in 186 countries. For educational governing bodies to change the way education was imparted to the learners, and this involved using technological platform. The implementation of lockdown measure has transformed students learning from the traditional pedagogies to remote alternatives, ensuring educational continuity but affecting all full-time students in higher education. So my objective of this studies, the way I have done research on this study, that the aim is to identify the changes in educational pedagogies and the impacts of students in the higher education during the COVID-19 pandemic with the attempt to in the attempt to pave a pathway to the to the new normal educational system and the post-pandemic. Now, my study was based and is performed in a in this way. The study was performed by means of a systematic literature review, which included a guided literature search. The following 5 research questions were formulated to be addressed within the study. So number 1, what is the new normal? Number 2, what is the normal education? Number 3, new normal, that was the first thing. Number 2, what is the normal education? Number 3, what how the pandemic disrupted education? Number 4, how how have the students in higher education been affected? And number 5, what steps are being taken to ensure normality in education? Go to the next slide. So, okay, so I'll go to this slide number 9. Results, which I'll go through, the identifying that pandemic have historically been a transition between the old and new. Human beings have broken links with the past to create a reimagine a new society. The new normal society is currently being formed where individuals are adapting and changing ways of their attaining goals. Let's look at the educational institution. So it is a priority of all education institutions to ensure continuing education and students' well-being. Over the years, educational institutions have been following pedagogies, especially addressing students, addressing teaching methods to the students, methodology and assessment with a focus on obtaining desirable exams results, reaching to the students satisfaction and maintaining a good rapport and maintaining a good student's attitude. Therefore, what was classified as a normal? Well, it was normal where the number of students sat in it was like normal for the physical examination process to occur in a large hall where a number of students sat in silence and educator invalidate the process. It was normal for face-to-face interaction to occur every step of the educational journey from admission to graduation. However, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, higher education institutions did provide remote courses. They were becoming increasingly popular, particularly as a part-time initiative. It was not the dominant method of obtaining higher education. So now And this one, what I have covered, that the globalization and the technological advancement have allowed for educational institution to deliver remote education by providing learning materials while receiving tuition fees from students internationally through online system. So when lockdown measures were applied and education institution closed physically, they rapidly invested in interactive conferencing calls, so conferencing, video conferencing software, allowing students experience the closest form of traditional face-to-face interaction, where the verbal and the elements of non-verbal communication could occur. If you look at it, for example, let me give you some example, that Zoom, Google Meet, where we are today, the Microsoft team, amongst all these other things, the interactive video conferencing software uses functions like hand raise, chat, and breakout rooms, so that the educator can utilize these functions to recreate the traditional teaching pedagogy. For example, if the students wants to ask a question in a traditional setting, they would automatically raise their hand up and say, hello, miss, or hello, teacher, or whatever the professor is, and wait for the educator to answer them. In this way, the same pedagogy is applied in the virtual setting with the hand raise icon. Many times, students enter group sessions with their peers to promote peer-to-peer interaction, where they use critical thinking skills to problem solve within an activity set by the educator. This situation can be reconstructed in the virtual setting using the breakout room, which allows students to enter one virtual space in a smaller group and obtain the same knowledge as they would within the traditional setting. So the learning material provided by the educators are uploaded onto remote platform. This allows students with the flexibility to access electronic learning material at a suitable time. They can revisit topics multiple times to improve their understanding. The content uploaded can consist of video presenting, written taxis, virtual assessment, audio virtual interaction, etc. This variation appeals to a variety of learning styles that student possesses. Educational institutions have created remote exams that students can take at home without physical contact with others. Like the traditional examination, the exam questions consist of either multiple choice, short or long answers, and audiovisual content. The method has allowed education to continue during this global upheaval where the world is upside down, providing students with the opportunity to progress towards the future. However, as it has been over the years since the COVID-19 lockdown was announced, remote learning has become new normal. Therefore, education educational institutions are continuously improving their pedagogies and enhancing their interaction with students. But doing that, after all, traditional educational pedagogy took centuries to develop to attain desirable result. Thus, progressing remote learning will also take time. So, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, normal education was deemed as a traditional education. However, during the pandemic, normal education can be referred to as a remote learning. When lockdown forced an educational transition from the traditional methods involving face-to-face interaction onto remote online platform, reaching pedagogies were revised to ensure continuing education. Thus, the traditional pedagogies of face-to-face teaching and learning is being replaced by remote method. This has enabled students and educators an opportunity to explore diverse learning strategies through using technology and associated online tools and function. It also can lessen financial burden resulting from the pandemic relating to the traveling and the stationery. So although the habits of using technology to learn has strengthened during the pandemic, it requires motivation, critical thinking, and knowledge of technological hardware, software, and stable internet connectivity, combined with the adequate educator support to ensure academic success. Like right now, couple of times the interaction, like connectivity is losing and we are coming back again. So this is the way, like today, the chairperson of this session was supposed to be there to introduce me, but unfortunately, due to technical issue, he's not able to come. So these are all the technology challenges in this era we are facing. Many inequalities have been highlighted during this pandemic that were not prioritized, including digital inequalities, including limited internet connection, poor bandwidth, and access to hardware and software, resulting in students having to cease education or defer this year. The teaching pedagogies have been altered, aiming to keep students engaged. Educational pedagogies consisting of combination of remote and traditional teaching and learning methods are required to help students progress with the aim to eradicate digital incompetence and maintain relationship like in a blended learning. The rapid transition for traditional to remote learning has resulted in educational institutions making impulsive decisions, not always determined by the best pedagogical practices, resulting in psychological implications on students. So COVID-19, if you look at it, it has affected in many ways to us. But we as a human being don't like any changes. However, we are trying because this pandemic has affected students globally. There have been affected on mental health stemming from lockdown, global uncertainty, interpersonal relationships, economics insecurities relating to financial fears, educational concerns relating to exam success, courses completion, and resistance to change. Research has found that psychological impact on students um, have exerted. This is particularly because they've loosened the confidence, the psychological impact for the students have loosened, and this is particularly among students with existing mental health issue, which have heightened anxiety and depression stemming from isolation and health concern, fears due to pandemic. Students have also been affected by stress, inherited worries about the impact of quarantine impinging upon the mental health. But remote learning, but if you think about the remote learning, I will tell you, okay, it has really helped the students to come out because remote learning promotes students to develop critical thinking skills to navigate around software, paving their own way to success in education. However, challenges will incur, thus self-motivation to continuing education through remote learning is necessary. During this pandemic, students have flexibility to achieve success at their individual space and including and also during a convenient time for them. Thus the time management and is imperatively to enable successful learning from remote condition. Also good internet connectivity and technology components are also necessary. So and I'll go through the conclusion now. So in conclusion, what I want to say that once after doing all these studies of my questions, this study has deduced that we have already started to enter a new normal society resulting from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. A world where social distancing, personal protective equipments, and technological usage has become acceptable. Historically, pandemics have been the root cause of change towards an evolving world, forcing novel advancement in contemporary life. Thus, the pandemic has facilitated a drastic shift in educational pedagogies from traditional methods to remote methods, where there is an attempt to recreate traditional methods of teaching and learning on electronic platforms. Therefore, until society globally can define what the new normals is, is education will continue to be an amalgamation of traditional and technological methods, which will be perceived as the new normal. So education, if you look at that, the education will need to continue to find the new ways, to finding the new innovative methods of teaching, of sorry, have I changed my slides? Yeah, finding the new innovative methods of teaching students and maintaining interest as to the sustained students in the higher education. Students in education systems have been affiliated due to the immense uncertainty regarding continuing education pedagogies and experiencing isolation and loneliness. This has had an impact on student mental health, factors creating psychological issue, particularly stress, anxiety, and depression through the trauma and the progress during the pandemic. So what has happened in the higher education? In the higher education, many education institutions have attempted to help students through collaborating with other institutions to provide awareness and extracurriculum initiatives to engage their learning. However, many educators are experiencing the same pressure as the students relating to the learning new ways of adapting during this pandemic, learning new hardware and a software to administrate online learning session with new pedagogies to help students achieve good results. Although there have been benefits of continuing education, many disparities have been highlighted, including inequalities and challenges for students and educators. Educators have been had to undertake more responsibilities as their duty of care towards students has increased. They aim to ensure normality in education within society that is still trying to understand what is new normal. So in short, there is an attempt of replicate the traditional teaching pedagogies onto the virtual platform. However, it is recommended to reimagine the education system and societal future in endeavor to work towards it. Thus, the blended learning approach can be viewed as a transitory link towards a new normal prior to a sustainable educational system post pandemic and before another life altering transformation. Thus, on the whole student on the whole, student requires an array of skills to face diversity through utilizing that knowledge receiving from the higher education institution amalgamated with resilience and positive thinking. Students will pay their path through this pandemic. And the last message I want to tell you in this slide, this is the last one. Yes. So what I would like to say, okay, through these pedagogies, education system needed to provide continuing support to the students through traditional face-to-face medium and remote accessibility. The students need to receive regular communication and educational programs implemented by higher education institution to ensure student security, leading to better mental health awareness. There is a necessity for support system to address issues relating to mental health, injustice, physical wellness like regular exercise and positive thinking. This is an important as student vulnerability and responsibility has increased during the pandemic. Simultaneously, the pandemic has highlighted the importance of health and family while providing time to self-reflection and reorganizing personal values system that will be beneficial when entering a new normal. I'm going to put my references, the references which I have gathered with my research. So that's one. I think so. Yeah. So that's all about. So I hope the research which I have done might help our educators, our students, our researchers um, on this virtual platform. So thank you very much for inviting me.